Aloha, welcome back to Aina Bear Farm. I wanted to do a quick video today. It's been a little while since we've done a video. Had a lot of rain. That's been part of the reason. Just kind of hard to get a dry moment to film. It is the rainy season here in Hawaii. You might have heard of some of the islands having some really bad mudslides, landslides. Luckily, we haven't had anything too bad in the local region where we live. But we've had a lot of rain for sure, and it's great. Everything is growing quite a bit. We're going to do an update on the whole food forest, like a spring update pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. I want to try to get everything cut because the grass is all grown up and it's hard to even see anything. So we're just waiting for a few dry days to get in and get things cut, and we'll take you on a tour. But today I wanted to talk about the idea of slow farming, just taking a slow pace, a slow approach to homesteading or even commercial farming, and some of the benefits to that. I think as a farmer, there's a lot of correct ways to do it, and a lot of them depend on your context and your goals, what you're trying to accomplish. For a lot of farmers, for example, they have a really tight budget, and probably most farmers, thin margins in agriculture. So that might be really guiding a lot of the decisions you make and kind of running the timeline and setting that out for you. For example, maybe you're leasing a piece of land, or you purchase some land and you're paying a bank back, or you put all your money in the land and you don't owe the bank, but you need income. All those things would dictate that you're going to need to speed up your production on that land to make some money. And so that totally makes sense. And I'm not talking in this video to like bash anybody who's farming in those manners, but rather just to kind of make the case for taking a really slow approach if you can. And I'm very fortunate that I can do that here. Farming is part homesteading for us, and then part kind of future semi-retirement, and it's a second job. I do have a full-time main job, so that alone dictates that I need to go a little bit slowly out here, and then we also have a really tight budget as well, and so I need to think about, like, what am I going to allocate my budget to. Here I've largely decided to allocate it to buying really high quality plants of the exact varieties that I want, which not only requires a decent amount of money sometimes, but it also requires patience to wait until you find the right plant. Sometimes I'll find a great variety of something, maybe a particular variety of grafted mango, but I don't like the graft junction on all of the plants I'm looking at, and I'll have to wait another 6 months for another kind of shipment to come through. And so that's kind of part of my patience here. But that is where a big chunk of my money goes. And so that also dictates that I don't have a lot of money to invest in machinery. And we're on a 4-acre property, which is probably kind of pushing the envelope of where you can comfortably do large-scale farming, or relatively large-scale farming, without using any machines. The only machine that we really use here is a gas-powered brush cutter to come and clear the pasture land, because if you haven't seen any of our videos before about our food forest, we're converting an old pasture back to forest and a food forest. So we use that machine a lot. We love it. It's very useful, very helpful. And another machine that would be very helpful that we don't have would be some type of tractor, something that can move dirt, dig up plants. And so you see me standing on a freshly dug path that I just did this morning. It's about 15 feet length. Probably took me at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half to dig this by hand. Did it just using a 5-pound Matic axe. And you've got to get in and dig up these stubborn guinea grass clumps, get all the roots out of there, chuck them to the side, and then come in and dig out the path, which is on contour, which I use my handmade A-frame level to lay out the contours. So I just kind of go really slow, measure the contours, set my little markers in place, come through with the axe, cut it, scrape it down into a little bit of a berm. Even though We don't really use swales and berms here because the ground is so porous. I think over time, as organic matter continues to settle in these areas, it's going to pay off. And then it's also just really nice to have flat walkways running throughout the food forest. So that's just one example of where like my budget actually necessitates that I go a lot slower. A tractor could have probably dug every path in my food forest in one day, which has taken me a year and a half to do by hand. So a lot of people would think, you know, rent the tractor, find somebody and pay them some money to do it. That way it's just done, and then you can move on to some other stuff, get your plants in the ground, do some things that are more fun or kind of get you off to a faster start. And that is definitely the case. And I'm not going to say that that's crazy for anybody else to do. But I will say that just doing this myself, it just allows me to move at a pace that allows me to see things. A lot of permaculture is about observation. And I'm not the most patient person in the world, but I always love the idea of, like, you know, you get onto a property, you spend the whole first year just observing, don't touch anything, just watch. I would love to do that. I don't have that level of patience. I don't know if anybody really does, but it at least kind of gives me like a happy medium. So as I'm digging these paths and I'm feeling the layout of the land, I'm also watching constantly, and I'm watching the seasons go by, I'm watching things change, and I'm letting this pasture turn to forest slowly. You know, one of the big permaculture phrases is a forest grows on a fallen forest. And so there's no doubt that we as agricultural people who are trying to do like agroforestry or food forest or something of that nature, we definitely want to speed that process up. We don't have a lifetime to wait to start growing our food forest. You know, I could come in here and just let the land reforest itself and then come in by the time I'm 80 and put in some fruit trees or something. So obviously that's kind of too much patience, too far that way. But I do have this kind of happy medium spot right now that really allows me to just spend some time out here, get really connected with what's going on, kind of feel out what's going to work in certain areas, what's not going to work. Go ahead, put in a lot of support species while I'm waiting to kind of feel out the seasons and how things change here. Last spring was really, really dry, like bone dry, and then all the way through the summer. It was a really long drought. This year, we're getting several inches of rain a day for most of the week right now, so it's totally different than last year. And just kind of going through that at a slower pace allows me to kind of see and adjust. If I had come through and dug everything right away, put in hundreds of fruit trees, you know, put down wood chips, all this stuff, like I might decide in a year, now that I've seen things, that I put things in the wrong place or made all kinds of contouring mistakes, or, you know, I might have to go back and change some things that are almost irreparable at that point. And so I really enjoy this pace for a practical reason, but also just to get connected with the land. Again, I think if you start getting bigger than 4 or 5 acres, it gets a little beyond practical to like be hand digging paths. But I walk this property almost a full 4 acres every day, look at every plant. And you know, I really am able to take in what's happening on a very kind of micro level in this whole system. And just going slow and taking my time allows me to do that. And it allows me to have just a really deep connection with the land where my food is coming from. And it kind of takes us back to what taking care of the land was originally about for humans. In most traditional indigenous cultures, they had this very cultural connection to the land. It wasn't just a practical matter of like, I need food, so I'm going to go out and put food in the ground. They had stories that integrated into their culture about their connection between the people and the land. Here in Hawaii, the word for land is aina. And so you might know our channel, Aina Bear Farm, which is also a connection back to our previous farm that we had in Maryland, which was Elder Bear Farm, who, by the way, has their own channel now, the new caretakers of that farm. So I'll post a link in the description to that. I should check that out. So when we came over here, we decided to use the word Aina in there because it's a really fantastic word. And the reason it's so cool is because Aina actually captures the word food in this word that is about land. So it literally means land, but when Hawaiians talk about land, they're not talking about dirt or even a place. They're talking about a special connection between people and the earth that feeds them. And so like the land has a constant connection to the food. And they had all kinds of stories about that, all types of gods that were connected to certain types of foods that they grew and they ate. And it was just very special beyond the idea of just practical farming. And I think just going really slow and being really patient has given me the opportunity to connect with the land in a way that is more special than just the practical piece of that I need some food or that I want to sell my food and make a profit. So just trying to make the case for, if you don't have to rush, try to slow down. There's some really fantastic pros to taking it really slow on your land, to doing things by hand, to getting rid of the machines, not just from a budget standpoint, but obviously save on fossil fuels, and just the upkeep, the wear and tear on those machines is crazy. You get plenty of exercise, you get to spend a lot of time outside, so I'm getting my vitamin D on days when it's sunny. I never have to go to the gym. I love being outside, so it's hard work. You go to sleep tired and sore most days, but it feels really good, and you feel like your life is just kind of full of purpose, and it's wonderful. So I highly recommend, if you can, think about slow farming and incorporate more patience into your agricultural practices. So that's it for today. Hopefully that was of some interest. Keep looking out. We're going to have a full tour soon. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll get everything looking good and tour worthy, and we'll take you guys around to see how everything's growing. Until then, we'll see you back here next time at Aina Bear Farm. Aloha.